Welcome to a series, He Trains My Hands for War, where we're going through the book of Joshua verse by verse, because the book of Joshua is by far, if not the only example, by far the best of what it is to be in the army of the Lord and follow his instructions, because that's what it'll be like in the end times, in the warring of the saints. The Bible tells us that we will sustain for 3.5 years against the Antichrist in the world army. Well, how in the world do you expect to do that when the Bible also says that who can prevail against them? But yet, we sustain for 3.5 years. And this is how it plays out. God is a warrior. He loves a warrior. He wars the same now as he did then, and he will in the future. But you have to do it his way. And that's something that we see time and time again with Joshua. Every time they do it his way, they have victory. Every time they don't, they have failure. So it's important that you know how that plays out. And where we are is Joshua and the Israelites have destroyed Jericho, Ai. They've gone on to Gilgal, where they were deceived into a treaty with them. Then 5 kingdoms came against them. God utterly destroyed those 5 kingdoms. And then Joshua literally had his captains come put their feet on the necks of these kings, of these kingdoms and these armies, to show this is how God plays this out. This is what you get in all this, is you get to put your feet on the necks of your enemies. So we're just going to pick it up there. And afterward, Joshua struck them and killed them and hanged them on 5 trees, and they were hanging on the trees until evening. So it was at the time of the going down of the sun that Joshua commanded, and they took them down from the trees, cast them into the cave where they had been hidden, and laid large stones against the cave's mouth, which remain until this very day. On that day, Joshua took Makkedah and struck it and its king with the edge of the sword, and utterly destroyed them, all the people who were in it. He let none remain. He also did to the king of Makkedah as he had done to the king of Jericho. Then Joshua passed from Makkedah, and all Israel with him, to Libnah. And they fought against Libnah, and the Lord also delivered it and its kings into the hand of Israel. He struck it and all the people who were in it with the edge of the sword. He let none remain in it, but did to its king as he had done to the king of Jericho. Then Joshua passed from Libnah, and all Israel with him, to Lachish. And they encamped against it and fought against it. And the Lord delivered Lachish into the hand of Israel, who took it on the 2nd day and struck it, and all the people who were in it with the edge of the sword, according to all that he had done to Libnah. Now I'm going to pause there, because there's this pattern that is emerging in the lives of the Israelites. And that pattern is the realistic way that God does warfare on behalf of warriors who are about the business of the Lord, the remnant. And I kind of want to give an example of David, because there was a moment when I was thinking about the life of David that I was going through some intense spiritual warfare that had been going on for years, and I just remember being like, God, how long? How long? And he showed me David in that very moment that stone left that sling, and he hit Goliath, and he picked up Goliath's sword. He had a sword in his hand his whole life. David was a king, but he was a warrior, and that never, ever stopped. He was constantly engaged in warfare. From that moment on, even as an old man, there was a time when people had to carry him out in his bed to flee attacks. It just never, ever, ever stopped. And what we're seeing with these Israelites is it's never going to stop. For them, really, until Solomon. And then it just picks right back up after Solomon, and it just never really stops. And and look at them today. It's what God does for them, because all of the enemies, the dragon and his tail, a third of the angels, all of them, all of the demons on this planet, and the devil himself are all constantly trying to devour and destroy Israel. So God embraces warriors, and they have victory after victory after victory after victory, time and time and time again. And for Israel, it just doesn't stop. And you kind of got to open your eyes to, in the end times, 3.5 years, what you got going on is you have people prophesying like crazy in defiance of the Antichrist. And they can't be shut up. Like it won't stop. It won't let up. It won't cease. And the Antichrist will attack reluctantly, never stopping, never ceasing, constantly. But yet, the remnant won't be separated from Jerusalem itself. Like, they can't be stopped at all. How? Well, this is how. Victory after victory after victory, doing it God's way. I mean, look at these 5 kings. If you didn't watch those episodes, what took place is God put them into an entrapment. There was a great slaughter on behalf of Israel, sword. And then as they fled, God rained down hailstone and killed more of them than died with the sword. And then Joshua knew that he had to put an end to these people. So he commands the sun and the moon to stand still until this job is finished. And it does, bringing about the longest day in the history of the world. Who knows how long that day was. And whenever he finally had those kings, he told his captains, stand on their necks. This is what God gives us. And then as soon as they're dead, then the sun goes down. And then they go on from one kingdom to the next, to the next, to the next. Not doing a different thing, doing the same thing. The whole way. Did the same thing to them as they did to Jericho. Did the same thing to them as they did to Jericho. Did the same thing to them as they did to Libnah, which is the same thing they did to Jericho. It just repeat, but God gives them victory after victory after victory, to the point where there's less detail in the Word of God about it, and it just never seems to cease or stop. It just keeps going and going. And we have to open our eyes to, when you're a warrior, and that's what you're getting, is victory after victory after victory. I mean, it's got to bring about, tremendous joy. So, there you go. Any thoughts or insight on any of that, definitely put that below. I do want to take a moment and say most people watch this channel, they're not subscribers. Click that subscribe button. It greatly increases the algorithm and our ability to get these messages out. That link is below. But the most important part of this channel, we take prayer requests, and never hesitate to send that in. Thank you for watching this episode of God, Family, and Guns. As always, love God, love your family, and love guns.